What is your goal?
What is my goal?
Write? Why do you write?
That is a very, very interesting question. One thing, and I think that that's true for a lot of writers. My personal reason for writing is I feel compelled to. So I don't think I can stop writing. I've tried to stop writing. I've tried to take breaks from writing, but it's the way I express myself. It's the way I process information. It's the way God shows me kind of what it is I think inside. And it's the way that I'm allowed to encourage and educate other people. So
I was thinking that I was at church one day, and not that it was just one day.
I was going to say, that was pretty impressive. Is that for the last decade there, Jane? We're going to have to do a little ministry intervention right there with you.
Okay. So one day when I was in church,
there you
how
go.
about that?
Nice self-editing.
Thank you for editing that for me. We have a couple of singers in our worship team that are absolutely fabulous. And I was thinking, they're really good enough to go pro. I mean, really could have a professional singing career. And yet they choose not to. They just really want to just sing in the church. So I started thinking about our reasons for writing, and would I continue to write even if I never got published? And I think that's a good question for writers in general is, what is your motivation? Are you writing because that's the end goal? I mean, not that that's a bad goal, but what if you never did get published? Would you continue to write?
For me, the answer is yes, in a heartbeat.
Me too.
I mean, I know you journal, and we've had a podcast on journaling. But that's at the very least, that's a form of, I have to get the written word out of my body. Yeah.
I mean, I started writing when I was really young. I mean, like 3rd grade. But by the time I got into 5th grade, we had a teacher who every Thursday we had to turn in a story. It had to be a certain number of words. And she read every single student's story during after the lunchtime, so we could all kind of lay our heads on our desk, and she would read everybody's story, and then we voted on who was the best one. But that for me was like, are you kidding me? I get to do this for school?
Exactly.
And by the time I got to 7th grade, I had a group of friends, and I would write stories about us. Every night I would write a story and bring it and read it to them in the library. And it was just super fun, because it was, 5 girls who got in these escapades.
Okay, I didn't know this about you, and I'm going to say this is kind of creepy, because me and my best friend, hey, Mary McCarthy, back in the day, we used to, because we were precociously intelligent, and we'd finish our work and whatever in middle school, and we would write. We had so many different kinds of stories going. In one, she was Guinevere and I was King Arthur, and we'd write notes in the person of the other person. And that was, she wrote, one of our things was in our ideal dream man, and I wrote to her as Gunther, the brooding German musician, and she married an opera singer. And she is an opera singer now, which is kind of funny.
Wow.
And she wrote to me in the person of a British man who played music, he loved Waltons, did all these things. And who did I marry? A British man.
Wow.
So, but that's funny that you and I both were story driven even back then.
Even back then.
Yeah.
So what I kind of boiled it down to, where there's several reasons why we write, not just because we can't not write, but one is for ministry.
Yeah.
I've written some articles for our church magazine that comes out once a quarter. And that to me is a ministry, because I know my audience is going to be people in the church, and talking about what kinds of things maybe other people are going through who are in my church.
Yeah.
And that may, I mean, I could, say, oh, I got published, but I didn't actually, I never got paid, but
yeah,
it was something that was very satisfying to me to write. So there's writing for ministry. There's also just writing for pleasure. And this is something that I have a hard time remembering now that I'm kind of in the business and trying to get published again, and, writing for, getting stuff done. I miss just writing for pleasure, just being able to write whatever I want. And I don't care that it's not, in my genre or, doesn't build my platform, but just to write something for fun.
Yes.
I mean, do you find that you have a hard time remembering about the pleasure of writing?
No, I have a hard time remembering that I'm in the business of writing professionally because, well, for example, I have a deadline right now for something I'm contracted to do. And because it's bitty, because I've never written devotionals before, and this is a devotional. So they're bitty, meaning they're small chunks. So I'm not having to keep the flow of a novel in my mind kind of thing. And so I'll write one and then I'll think that'll spur something in me. And I'm like, well, I'll just take just a minute. And then 4 hours later, I'm like still writing on the thing that is giving me pleasure. I'm like, I need to get back to the thing I'm getting paid to write. So I don't have a problem with remembering that it's fun. I have a problem remembering that it pays bills sometimes.
We should.
That's why we're like such a good fit.
Yeah, because I just feel like I need to just spend some time doing something fun instead
to be fair though, you as a vice president of a bank in a full-time job, and you've got some other big things like a move coming up and other things that are happening, you don't have, I mean, I'm writing full-time and writing coaching and things. So in a sense, I have more time than you do. When you have your writing time, you've got to get down to business.
I got to be serious.
You got to get to business. So I think that's going to change for you. I think it's going to change for you. And you're going to come over to the dark side with me.
That we do write because it's fun.
Yeah.
But sometimes you get to a point where this is so not fun right now. I'm either stuck in editing and it really stinks because editing is hard, or I'm trying to finish this novel and I can't think of an ending, or I've got to finish this.
Or there's a deadline coming
I'm jiggling here. Sorry.
Your anger jiggling, calm down. When you've got a deadline, it's kind of fun to say, oh, I've got all the time, I'm just gonna let the story flow. But when you know that on Friday you have to turn something in, whether it's your edits, your rewrites, or the first draft of something,
it's pretty
there's a lot of pressure there. There's stakes. See what I did there?
See what I did there? Previous one. So of course we write for publication.
Yeah.
I get a huge amount of pleasure from having something published, whether it's an article or a devotional or somebody asked me to write something for their blog. It's very satisfying writing for publication. And as anyone knows who's been published, there is a huge rush of endorphins that are released when you first get a contract that says we're going to actually pay you money or you will get paid for writing, and you get that first box of books. There's nothing like that. It never goes away. So we do write for publication.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But if you're not writing for publication, you could be writing for peace of mind. Like Robyn, you brought up journaling. I love to journal just because it kind of helps me clear my mind, so to speak. But I also journal for spiritual reasons. But it gives me, if I can articulate in my journal what is going on for me personally, it really makes a difference.
Yeah.
We talked about this, but do you journal? I don't remember.
I do in spurts. Yeah, okay. I do. And for the very same reason. I mean, it's such a positive release it's a processing time. It's a chronicling what God's done.
Mm-hmm.
So that because we talked about, I've done a gratefulness journal for long periods, and it's a way of connecting my thoughts because when they're down on paper, it's kind of like we've mentioned this before. I had my faith beliefs in my mind, but when I had children and I had to articulate them, then it was like, okay, now what do I really believe?
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing with writing. When you see it down on paper, kind of these weird thoughts that just kind of float in a sea of obscurity, when you put them down on paper, you either go, yeah, I really believe that. And it kind of does something to you, secures it, anchors it in you, or you go, what was that doing in my head? What was that? Let's cross that out and say, and I think there's a finality when you put a thought into a word that either almost, this sounds like we're worshiping words and we're not, but it kind of enshrines it a bit. It kind of, it locks it down in a moment in time. This is how I felt. This is what I thought. Or this is just a beautiful phrase that came into my mind. It's now down in a way that cannot be forgotten. It cannot be changed when you retell it to another person. So I think that there's just a really powerful thing that the process of thinking and feeling going into an actual finite word that's on the page.
Well, and it's really powerful using your pen to write to page. It's more, for me in the journal, it's more powerful than I've tried doing, a journal on my computer, and it's just not the same. It's really, it forces you to slow down. I know we're not talking about journaling, but it does force you to slow down and actually think more about what you're writing. And I like looking back and going, oh, wow, that happened then. And look at where I am now.
Yeah, exactly.
When I saw a counselor,
you're vibrating.
I'm sorry, I'm vibrating the table.
She's knocking the table.
I'm just so excited about this.
You know, what are you doing? You're hitting with your leg or something. Anyway.
Okay.
Sit still,
moving
Jane
on.
Daly.
When I went to see my counselor, she told me to actually write a letter to my mom, who passed away a year ago. That was so incredibly helpful for me to write down, because I didn't just write, oh, you were such a great mom and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I wrote down some of the things that were really difficult about being her daughter, but also the things that were really good. So back to, we write for peace of mind. That gave me a lot of peace of mind, and to read that again and to feel like, my mom did the best she could with what she had. A lot of times people write for family legacy or for heritage.
That's true.
Lots of folks are writing memoir now, and it seems to be a really popular up and coming genre. It used to be only people who were famous would write their memoir and get published, and people would read
even
it.
Now there's this, you're right, it used to be famous people only, and now it's compelling stories. But there's two kinds of memoir that are emerging. One is the creative nonfiction, almost reads like a novel kind of a thing. And that's anybody who's got a good story and can write it well, kind of a thing.
Right.
And then the family legacy side of things, where it's almost like a hybrid between memoir and biography. So people are writing, and it will have more of the, I was born in a shack on the banks of the, Missouri, all the way through to their death. And that's not what a commercial memoir is.
Right.
But it will have more than just, and then at 13, I went here, and this was my school, and then I married on the 12th. And it's more than that. It's also the feelings and the thoughts of the writer. So it's kind of a hybrid blend, but it is a powerful gift, a legacy to a family who, you just don't sit down and say, tell me what it was like when you were in 5th grade. And you only hear the big stories, the funny stories, the horrible stories. You don't really hear the nuances of every single day I ate a bologna sandwich because that's all my family could afford. Those are the details which, when you're writing fiction or creative nonfiction, bring the richness to it. And we don't do that when we talk. We don't tend to anyway.
Right.
So it's a gift. It's a gift to know. It's kind of why one of the reasons that I love Laura Ingalls Wilder's writing was it's a glimpse into the daily life. She wasn't just writing about big events. She was saying, we went to a barn raising and this is what we brought, this kind of food, so you learn things about cultures and stuff. So that family legacy and heritage, that's a gift to the family, but it's also a gift because it's a glimpse into our own histories. And you can learn things about America or wherever they are from.
But if you're just writing for your own family, that's important too. If
Very important.
Say you had, like you said, a really interesting or difficult childhood, and you want your kids and your grandkids to know without you creating a lot of drama by telling them, or you want to get it all down so that future generations will see it. I mean,
exactly.
There's nothing wrong with that, and a lot of folks are self-publishing those.
Yeah. And I think that is a completely legitimate. It's not just kind of poo-pooed as, well, it's just for your family. I think there's a real universal value to hearing the stories of how life was. It's almost like a history lesson, but not saying on this date the battle was fought and on this day the Magna Carta was signed, kind of thing. I think
I was there at Pearl Harbor or something like that. Compelling.
All that's wonderful and interesting, but how people have lived their lives on a daily basis is really it's Americana, or it's worldwide history, but it's cultural history. So I think that there's a great value to it.
And Susie Finkbinder wrote a book. Finkbinder, if I said your name wrong and you're listening, I'm sorry. But she wrote the book, A Cup of Dust. And although it was written as a novel, there was so much history about the Dust Bowl
Yes.
in it that was, I mean, truly did not, like you said, they didn't have anything to eat, or they had barely enough to eat and no water because it hadn't rained for like 3 years. I don't remember exactly, but it was such an incredibly powerful book. Even talking about it makes me thirsty because the dust, they just had so many dust storms pouring into their house. It was just, oh.
Well, I want to add one thing, because I know that that's the end of your list, but I want to add one more thing. Well, I know that you have other things to say, but I mean, on your little list of reasons you write.
Sorry.
Jane. She's looking very rested, though, isn't she? If you're on the YouTube channel, she's looking great. She's having a good summer. I'm having a little stressful summer.
Except for this, if you're looking at the YouTube and you see this, and I'm sorry you podcast listeners can't see the apparatus on my arm. But
yeah, she had a surgery that makes her look like she's half bionic now. So the other thing is, and funnily enough, it is people write for community. And I know a lot of bloggers, especially, they've gone through something in particular. And when I was blogging with our special needs son, and when I was fostering and dealing, and we had fostered and adopted from the foster care system, being able to blog and be participants in groups where you're actually writing and asking questions and just sharing your feelings with people who understand what either your passion is, or what your problem is, or what your sadness is. That is a very powerful healing form. It's kind of like group journaling. Is really what it is. So that's a legitimate blogs and online communities and Facebook closed groups where they're writing, they're talking about resources and they're talking about feelings. All of that is powerful usage of the written word.
Which does not necessarily involve publication.
Yeah.
And so want to talk just for a minute about, is publication a worthy goal? Is that something that we have to strive for, or is it something that we can strive for? Because if you're a blogger, let's just say that you're a blogger, you love it, and maybe you don't ever think about getting traditionally published or getting paid. I don't know. I mean, what do you think?
Well, the only way that I can think of this is from a Christian perspective, and it's what I tell my writing clients and our students when we teach at writing conferences and workshops and whatever. If your goal is to be published, I think that probably is minimizing the value of writing. I personally believe God's going to call you to do what he's going to call you to do. And if you're obedient to that, he's going to work out the details. So for me, instead of waking up every morning and saying, am I supposed to be working toward publication today? I go more on am I supposed to be writing today? Is that what you're still calling me to do? And we've talked about on the agent, on how to get an agent podcast. I did not seek out my agent. My agent and I had formed a relationship, and it was kind of through the back door. So God's going to do that. If he wants you published, he's going to get you published. In some way, he's going to do it. But if your goal is to focus on what the trends are, what's publishable right now, what's marketable right now, and if you're always positioning yourself for that goal, sometimes I think you miss the import of what you're being called to write.
No, I agree, because the bigger question would be, can you keep writing if you never get published? And if your answer is anything else other than, yes, I can keep writing, then your motive really is not where it should be. Because as Christians who are also writers, our goal should be pleasing God, not I need to get published. And I think that, a lot of people tend to want to skip steps. And so they'll skip over learning the craft and being excellent and doing the work that it takes, because it is hard to be a professional writer. I won't diminish that at all.
But what you just said to me is it's incredibly important to hear. If your focus is publishing, your mind does skip the important things in the journey of being a writer. And I think you need to work on serving the message that you're giving. or given, whatever it is, whatever you're passionate about, even if it's a comedy, whatever
Right.
it is that it is, it doesn't have to be, life-changing, riveting stuff. It can be just pleasurable writing. But if that's your passion, what you should be focusing on is not how to get it published, but how to make it better.
Right.
And then the next steps will kind of come when it's time, and you'll know when it's time. But if you rush along, you miss making your writing the best writing it can possibly be, and that's a problem.
That's it. Well, you've been listening to The Art of Semi-Fiction. I'm Jane Daly.
And I am Robynne Miller, and this is where we explore every corner of the written word.
So thank you for listening. Please like us, subscribe, and leave a review.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening.
Thanks.